Welcome back to the Growth Department. Today we have Diana Zwetzich. Diana Z. She is an experiential designer who thinks like a host with roots in architectural design and environmental storytelling for global brands. To break down simply, we're all thinking about in real life marketing in 2026. So she's here to talk about how to do IRL experiences right. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
We are all getting pretty exhausted by our screens. So how can experiences or activations help brands stand out in an era where everyone's like, enough is enough with the screens and the AI?
Yeah, I think this is where physical activations have the biggest advantage right now. Like you say, we are all exhausted by our screens. I think Gen Z spends 6 or 7 hours just on their phones. So anything that's real and human and out in the real world is something that we all are longing for and something that stands out immediately because we do want that human connection. And brand activations, they give this rare gift to brands where you have the undivided attention by the guest. Basically, you're not competing against 20 tabs. You don't have notifications coming in. It's just you and the guests sharing the same space, sharing the same air. So that creates so much deeper opportunities than just awareness. You can actually create a relationship with the guest, but only if it's designed this way. Unfortunately, right now, a lot of activations are designed as an Instagrammable photo backdrop, and that just becomes an extension of this noise that we already are so tired of. So if you want to stand out as a brand, you really need to think more about how you can create an activation that is an actual experience and makes people feel something and not just give them something to post about.
I've been guilty of this where I just think having a photo booth or something really cool in the corner that's splashy will make people talk about the event forever. Okay, they might take a photo, but did it even leave a mark on them?
Probably not.
Probably not. In a recent article, you wrote that there's a missing layer in experiential marketing is that we're overlooking the guest. Can you talk to us about the concept of throwing experiences as if you're a host?
Yes, for sure. I think we need to have a big mindset shift that when you do an activation, you're not performing, you're hosting. Because right now, most activations are designed like a show. There's something to look at, there's something to photograph, there's something to consume. But hosting is different. Hosting is not about the spectacle, it's about the guest. And when you host, you obviously think in a very different way. You think, how does the guest feel? Does he feel welcome? Does he feel comfortable to stay? Does he feel seen? It's so much more about care than about the performance. And a lot of the times, this all lives in the invisible details. What is the lighting and the atmosphere? How does the staff interact with the guests? What are the moments for connection? And this is what we're missing right now. So we have really mastered how things look, but now we just have to master how things actually feel.
Why isn't just having a pretty space or a cool design enough to make an experience successful?
It's because design alone creates attention, but it does not create connection. When you have a beautifully designed space, it might get you a picture, but it does not guarantee you that somebody had a good time in the space or enjoyed the activation or has changed the way they feel about the brand. I've been to so many activations that are so beautiful, but at the end feel empty and flat and boring, basically. You walk in, you look around, and then you walk out. There's just not really much to do. It's not that exciting. And that's because design is just a container. It's sets a stage, but it's not actually an experience. The experience is in what people do inside the space, how they share it with other people, how they feel, how they connect. So without that layer, without this, the hospitality or the interactions, even the most beautifully designed space feels empty. And a lot of guests they can sense that right away when they walk into a space and are, to be honest, over it.
I went to one last year. My mom and I went to Spain, and we were in Madrid when the Madrid Fashion Week was there. And we thought this is going to be the coolest thing. We've never been to Fashion Week. And they had all these beautiful, like kind of mini booths of different brands and everything. And no one was working them. Nobody was there to so you just said, okay, this is a cool looking space. And then you moved to the next one. And that's it. There was no real connection with any of these. So I'm getting it.
And if you think about the budgets that people spend and the time they spend to build this for something that has no effect, basically. very sad.
Do you have any examples of where an experience fell flat, or maybe you went to it or you saw it and what you would have done differently?
Yeah, sure. So I'm going to tell you about an experience I had that was two completely opposite experiences at the same day. It was a few months ago. And I read about this activation that was designed by my favorite architect for a brand that I never heard of. It was some kind of a new perfume brand. So I go there, and the moment I walk in, my senses were activated. There was the smell in the space, the lighting was dimmed. It was just a very calming environment. And then this man came up to me and welcomed me and told me all about the brand and what makes them different and how they do perfume in this new way. I was very intrigued right away. And then he spent his time walking me through all the options and kind of helped me figure out what would be the best for me. When he was finished, then another lady comes up to me and she turns out to be the CMO of the company. And she asks me, how did I hear about this brand? And I tell her, and she loved my answer. And she's like, can I take a video of you to show internally? And I was like, sure. So it's just like within minutes, I was connected to the brand. And I felt almost like I was vital to their growth or something. And that was not the design. The design was actually not that great. It was all those human interactions that I had. And right after that, I went to another activation that I knew was happening. And it was for this big vitamin brand that we all heard about. And it was in Soho, this big space. In the middle of the space, they had giant tree installations that was so obvious that it was a photo moment. Like as a designer, I can read all the clues. And then on the walls, they had all those activations or activities that we've seen a million times, like write something on a sticky note and put it on the wall, or take a token and put it on the box. So like, again, very, very similar to 29 Rooms and what we have seen before. And there was also a BA. He welcomed me. He was very polite and nice. He told me what the activities were inside the room. And I walked in, I looked around. I mean, I personally don't need to put a sticky note on the wall. I don't know about you, if that's something that excites you. So I walked in, I got my free vitamins, and I left. Like there was just nothing for me that they missed the opportunity to connect with me. They missed the opportunity to even tell me what makes them different from a different vitamin brand. Like, why should I pick them next time I'm at CVS? So I just feel like those two examples were so drastically different in their approach. Like one used the rules of hospitality, of care and attention and making me feel seen. And one was just doing the same formula that we have seen since the beginning of the experiential movement with 29 Rooms. And it doesn't work.
Yeah. Can you train? So when you do an activation, are you hiring like actors to come in, or are you bringing your own team? How do companies normally have the people who are there to be these hosts and welcome you?
Well, you hire BAs usually for big brand activations. There's obviously some people that are usually you reach out to an agency that has a bunch of BAs and waiters, etc. And then you can ask, can I have somebody who's more outgoing? Or you can kind of tweak it to based on what the brand is. Obviously, if it's a very more quieter brand, you have to train the BAs differently than if it's a big bubbly, like girly fashion brand or something. So you have to adjust the tone to the BAs, but that is something that is usually missing. Like we don't do that. You have to also train them of how to interact with the guests, how to welcome them. Like that example that I just said of those two, the first example at the perfume store, he actually told me what makes the brand special, whereas the second one didn't. And that's just something that you need to plan ahead when you design the guest journey. It's like this BA welcomes you, it tells you what the brand is about.
So BA is brand ambassador, is that right?
Yes.
I'm like, oh, I was a BA when I was younger. I would go to events and get $20 an hour and hand out stuff, but there was never training. They'd be like,
Yeah.
Here's Ralph Lauren, Lauren, whatever, blankets, go give them out to college kids, or go give out these little koozies, or whatever it was. It was just go give these things out and say like, hi, and that's it. There was never,
Yeah.
this is why we're doing a picnic theme. This is why.
Hmm.
Oh, okay. Brand ambassadors, and you can hire a company that can help you find them.
Yeah, but then it's on you to, like we just said, to train them and to get them to the point where they can be guest facing and have that. I mean, some people have it, some don't. I worked in restaurants for years. It's just like there's some hosts that are just not as good with connecting with customers than others. So
Mhm.
it's kind of, you have to select the people.
Do you have any fun stories from your past experiences of events that you can share?
My background is in architecture, but I transitioned to experiential design in 2016 or 17, I forget. But this was my first project was 29 rooms. And as you remember, 29 rooms was this big factory. It was this big viral moment where experiential started like really booming. And I was hired because I worked on that project 10 years ago, but then I was hired again to do this new 29 rooms iteration. And we all were looking at data and seeing that, like, okay, yes, people want connection, people don't want any more just photo moments, etc. So how can we make it a little bit more hospitality driven? So we did this activation at Coachella, and it was called the Lunar Lounge. It was just an outpost outside of Coachella where we rented a mansion and just did all of those. I mean, the audience of Refinery 29 is a little bit more Gen Z girl, female heavy. So with that Lunar Lounge, we had all those different spaces, different rooms, like in the old 29 rooms, but that were much more focused on connection. So there was like one room where you got your makeup done, but it was more of like a girly experience where everybody was doing it together. Then one room where you could actually get real tattoos. So it was all like spaces. So people loved that as well. And then one that was like a community game, Mission 29, like just trying to get out of space. Like everything was more drawn to that. And this is actually where I first realized that, like, wow, this is more of a hospitality project than a experiential. Like it was all about being there for the guests, guiding them through it, and just connecting with them. And it was such a huge success. Afterwards, we got the data because we measured for it, and everybody was just like blown away and so happy. And yeah, it was a great experience.
This is a perfect segue to my next question. Leadership teams obsess over show me that there was an ROI. So for every marketing dollar, not every other department's like this, but for any sort of marketing spend, show me an ROI. How are you measuring whether and how an activation does?
I mean, I think the pressure to prove ROI is valid. It's just that sometimes we are focusing on measuring not enough or measuring not the right things. So right now, most teams will measure what's easiest to quantify, which is what are the likes, the reaches, the content volume, like all of that digital noise. But those are just short-term signals. They don't tell us if the activation was actually successful. Again, like I said earlier, what is the real value in experiential is that relationship building component. And that is, how will somebody remember me? How will somebody talk about me? Will they come back to me? And those are usually, they don't show up immediately. And this is where I think the tension is with the ROI. So again, I don't think it's about like abandoning the ROI, but it's just expanding of how we define it, because we should measure both. We should measure if something has the short-term signals, which is the reach, etc., because we do want awareness of our brand, but then we should also measure the long-term impact, which is brand loyalty, sentiment, all of that. But because unfortunately, if you only focus on measuring what's the short-term signal, your design will reflect that. It's all about how do you make it big and spectacular, but you don't focus on the second part.
And for the Coachella event, the mansion, how can you tell, okay, they not only had a fun time that day, but the brand loyalty has grown with these people who visited. Is there a way you could tell we said it was successful?
I mean, first of all, you can tell by how long people stay. People stayed for hours. They don't just walk in and walk out. They had
Wow.
just such a good time. So you feel it. It's an energy in the space. And then, yeah, I mean, we did ask. Refinery has an internal data center, so they were able to ask all those questions and are like, how do you see first response was one of the clients, how do you see first response now? And it was all like positive that they, yeah, so it's a questionnaire afterwards that was there, but you could tell from when you're at the experience, you can already feel that.
I guess they didn't just walk in and get their vitamins and get out. They were there having a good time, getting
Yeah, and then actually
tattoos.
one girl, because we had all those pregnancy tests for first response in the bathrooms. One girl, we saw her like running out of the bathroom and running home or like leaving the venue, and then we walked into the bathroom and there was a positive.
Oh my gosh. That'll leave a mark.
So either she's very happy or she's definitely never gonna forget this event.
Some of the people who are listening may have never done this, never created a experience or an activation before. How can a marketing team work with somebody like you to bring an idea to life?
Yeah, I mean, I think the strongest collaborations happen is when the brand doesn't just come with a format like I want to pop up or I want to sell more things or I want something immersive, but they have a clear goal of a intention. Like what do they want this activation to achieve in terms of how people will feel or how will that shift the relationship to the brand? Because once we know that, everything else can be designed. You can create a guest journey, you can make it photographable and you can still achieve those short-term signals. But the problems that I see right now is that a lot of the times experiential is almost being seen as a production task and not as a strategic one. It's more about like make it look cool and not about like how can we make this meaningful. So I think the best way to work with someone like me is just translating the goals of the brand into a lived experience and not just a visual one.
Do you work with mostly marketing folks, or do companies who have successful activations typically bring in other people, like product people, sales people? What do you recommend? Who should be involved?
In the experience, I mean, yes, usually a brand hires an agency and the agency has all of those little components with they have the creative direction, experiential design, production team, etc. They come as a full package usually.
And then does a experiential person like you, would you go into the client and talk to the product people and talk to different departments, or does one department usually work with you?
Yeah, it's usually the account manager or the accounts people that talk. So there's definitely a little bit of like the little train of one person tells it to the other person
A little
tells it to the
translation
other.
going on.
Yeah. But you do have a kickoff call and you meet with the client, the whole team, and it's like, what is the things that are important to you? And usually you get a brief and then you kind of try to go to each point to really understand what the ask is.
You wrote one article that explained peak end rule when someone's planning an activation. Will you break down what peak end means?
Yes. So right now, the industry standard is that you lay out a guest journey or a user journey. And those are all the different touch points that you have to design and what the guest will experience. And it's very important to know all those touch points, but the peak end rule is something that teaches us that that's not how we remember an experience. We don't just average all the little touch points and then this is like, oh, this was a success. We only remember our brains, that's how they work, is that we only remember the peak, which is where an emotional shift happens, where all of a sudden we feel joy or intimacy or connection, all of those feelings. And then the ending is as important because most activations right now, they just kind of fade out. There's no closure. But the ending is one moment where we can really define the memory. So instead of focusing on all those different touch points with the same sense of attention, we should only focus on those two things, which is what is the moment people will talk about later and what is the feeling that we want people to leave. Because if you have those two things right, the activation becomes memorable, even if the rest is very, very simple. Because I've seen so many activations where you're like, we need to do an entry moment. Oh, let's build this giant tunnel or whatever. That's so often they do tunnels. And like so much money goes into that and nobody's going to care.
They go through the tunnel and then they're in.
They go through the tunnel. What's actually the one thing that's like the high point of my experience?
And for you, the high point isn't the sticky notes?
This not the sticky notes, not the tunnel.
My gosh. Yeah, so folks could be focusing. Companies could be focusing on like 15 different things, like, oh, we'll have sticky notes over here. We'll have
Yeah,
pedicures over here, and not focusing on the 2 points. Like what are they going to remember and
yeah,
what's the end going to be like?
exactly.
Do you have an ending, like a splashy end at a lot of activations where it's timed, or is it more when people are walking out whenever they do walk out?
I mean, um, every activation is so different. It could be something at Coachella, like a big one where people just pass through, and obviously there it's a little bit harder to create the whole connection point. And then there's other ones like the one that I mentioned with Refinery. That's more of like a hospitality experience where you come to a place and you sit there for hours. I mean, no, it's the ending is not a splashy thing. It's more, again, it's like, have you achieved with all of your things that you've been doing that moment or that feeling of, oh, this was amazing. This was something like I connected with so many people. And yeah, it's It's not even a design, to be honest. It's more about the what you create. You design everything beforehand. You make the atmosphere good enough so that there's connection. You put the chairs in a way where people can interact. All of those little touch points, they create the moment that will become the ending. But there's no like a design of an ending.
I like it.
Yeah, but I mean, it makes it harder.
There's no like end scene. The curtains don't just
Yes,
close.
yes.
Oh, I'm thinking so much. So, folks, a lot of people are trying to do these intimate satellite dinners or outside of the box, not just going to trade shows and that's it for their marketing. They're trying to do different events like this. What advice would you have for a company that's never done one of these well? Where to start?
I mean, again, the first you start, what is your intention? What do you want to achieve with that? What's the feeling you want to create? Like if you want to create trust, how can you show trust in that activation? It's probably something smaller, more intimate. It's not anything flashy. It's more you have everybody there who can show that, all of those little details to create that feeling. I do think it helps if it's not just a bunch of random BAs that don't know anything, but actually someone from the company who can speak in behalf. And again, it's about connecting and creating a relationship to the company. So this is the faces that are a part of it. Yeah, I mean, those are usually smaller is better.
Start small, folks. Don't need to go spend 15 million the first time.
Yeah. But I
Maybe
mean,
the
that's
second
what
time.
usually brands do that. They do like a dinner outside of a conference or something like that.
What's your favorite thing about your work?
I really love my work because I think that I I just believe in the power of experiential, because I think that our lives, they're not shaped by flashy things or materialistic things. They're shaped by the memories we have. So being a part of creating those memories for people is just very, very rewarding. And my favorite part is when people come up to me and they're like, this was my favorite event, or this was the best party I've been to. Then it just makes all of the hard work and all of the hours and hours of preparation for this tiny little moment so worth it, just knowing that I've created something that someone will carry with them for a long time, or maybe even forever. That's kind of the biggest impact of what I do.
We're going to link below so everyone can find you on the internet, because you have some great articles about some of the topics we talked about too. We like to ask our guests, what's one book or podcast or show that you've been loving lately?
I mean, I read a lot and listen to a lot of business things. So I've been listening to 10 times is easier than 2 times. And that was very, very insightful. So I would recommend that. That actually led me or inspired me to write the articles.
10 times is better than 2 times.
No, 10 times is easier than 2 times.
Easier. 10 times is easier than 2 times. I will put that in below too. And then what's one thing you're working on or trying to learn this year?
I started this little getaway series because I live in New York, and I create those getaways in upstate New York for people. And the concept is just inspired by the old Borscht Belt hotels when hotels were much more of communal hubs rather than just a place where people come, check in, stay in a night, and then leave. And that's all like experiential. It's like, what are the activities they can do, and what are the things that they can do to connect? So I've been putting together a few events, and that's what I'm doing this summer as well. And that's very exciting and really fun.
Oh, that's fun. I hope you get great weather this summer.
Yes, I know. That's always the most stressful part. It's like the weekend is coming up. Please let it be sunny.
Please be sunny, but not too hot. Just right.
I know.
Well, appreciate you for coming on here. I know a lot of people really want to try this year. Some folks have done it, but maybe not done it well. And you've given us all great tips to do experiences right.
Yeah. I mean, to make them feel better, there is not that much out there in terms of how to make it right, because even though it's been around for 10 plus years, it's still somewhat relatively new. And even if you read a book like The Experience Economy, which is the kind of the most prominent book out there about experience, it doesn't talk about it. So yeah, it's still developing, this industry, and we're going to get it better. But right now it needs to get better.
We can all help shape it.
Yeah.
No sticky notes. That's what I took away from this too.
Please.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.